Good late evening from Southeast Asia. It's a cool, rainy, monsoony kind of a night, and I like it. This story is about a rat, and we're going to name it some really strange, odd thing. Let's call it the rat. Okay? This is not a story about a pet rat. This is a story about a street rat. Now, I happen to like rats. My only experience with them is with the white ones you get from the pet store. I don't know anything about the brown ones. You know, the ones that go rooting in your garbage and stuff like that. I only know about the white ones. I love the white ones. They're the smartest little critters. My God, they're smart. They're stunningly, shockingly smart. I had a number of them over a number of years. You buy them for, $5 or something. You make them a beautiful little cage and you give them all the cool stuff that they want and they become your very best little friends. Man, they're cool. If you never had a rat, you should have one. The reason I don't have rats anymore is because they don't live very long. I think the best I ever got was 3.5 years out of one. And rats are such that, you get more attached to them as time goes on, and you see how amazingly smart they are and how loving they are. And then right about the time you're really starting to think, man, I should marry this rat, and they die. So that was heartbreaking, and I just know I won't do it anymore. I suppose at some point in your life you're going to be so old that, it's pretty much a done deal that you're going to outlive the rat. So maybe when that happens, then I'll get a rat. I don't know. Now, Southeast Asia has lots of strange, weird, spooky stories. And this is one. I was living in a big old mansion in, where the heck was it? Thailand. It was in Thailand. And, God, it was a huge house. It had big old white pillars out in front, and oh God, it was a gorgeous house. I paid pennies for it, rented it, paid pennies. And I lived there for a year, I guess. Now, in Southeast Asia, pretty much anywhere, but especially in Thailand, snaky damn place. You got to be really careful about ways that snakes and other creepy things can get into your house. The Thais aren't all that careful. They're raised with snakes. They don't like them especially, but they're not terrified like white people are. I grew up in rattlesnake country. I didn't like those either, but Southeast Asia, well, they don't even rattle, the bastards. Imagine that. So you got to be pretty careful. You don't leave windows open. You don't leave doors cracked. This was kind of a semi-jungly area, and there are snakes everywhere. And so we were pretty darn careful about making sure snakes could not get into the house. One night, girlfriend's cooking dinner. She goes, takes some, potato peelings or something. I don't know what it was. And she goes in the laundry room, throw them in the garbage. And she comes out screaming. And I said, oh God, snake. And I had my snake grabber stick, you got to have one. You got to get issued one as soon as you go to Southeast Asia. It's like one of those things for old people when they can't reach the soup can, up on the top shelf. But these are like industrial ones on steroids. They're like, 15 feet long, mine was. and you got a grip handle like that, and you squeeze it, and then the jaws go down, and they grab the snake, and then you do whatever you're going to do to the snake. So I figured we had a snake. So I got my snake stick, and I ran in there, and flashlight, and rooting around, and I could hear it, Where is it coming from? Under the washer? No, yeah, geez. Okay. Finally, it turned out, I just got a glimpse of it. It weren't no snake. It was a rat. Big old brown, alley rat thing. I don't particularly like them. I don't know. They seem like they're dirty. They're wild to bite you. I don't know. I like the white ones, okay? Racist. I'm racist. Anyway, so you don't want a rat, rooting around in your home. That's a secondary concern. The primary concern is how in the hell did this thing get in? Because if it can get in, a snake can get in, So then began the search, and we rooted all that night, couldn't figure out how he got in. But he went out. He got out. When I was chasing him around with that stick, he said, no. He disappeared. He's out. He's gone. Okay, where did you go? And so we're rooting around and searching, had to call it off for the night, get up in the morning, back at the search, trying to figure out how this rat got in the house. And then we're worried, did some other snakes get in, or did some snakes get in, and we didn't know it. That's the big concern, It was right about that time, a little girl, 6-year-old girl, about 2 miles away. Parents went in to wake her up in the morning, and she wouldn't wake up, and pulled the covers back, and she was dead. And they got to looking at her. How can you be dead? Really pretty little 6-year-old girl. And they called, I don't know, probably the police, and some medical people showed up, and they found 2 little puncture marks on her finger. Well, it turned out that a cobra had come in to the house during the night, and she was probably sleeping with her hand hanging down by the floor. And it thought, oh, tasty morsel, bitter. And I don't know why she didn't wake anybody up, but she didn't. Anyway, they found the cobra curled up in the closet. He's waiting for the kid to die so he can try to eat it. Okay, so they did whatever they're going to do with the cobra. But anyway, snakes and cobras and things are very much on our minds in Southeast Asia, at least for white people. We don't like them. So it was important to figure out where this hole was, where this rat got in, and we're hoping that no other snakes followed it in, because we'd been there some number of months when this happened, and so whatever hole he got in through, it had been there all this time, and God knows what had slithered in. Okay, so rooting around. It turned out that whoever built the house, they had taken some, I think it was 3-inch PVC, and they set it into the wall. These were 8-inch thick concrete walls, the exterior walls, and they had set it into the wall, and then they had run some plumbing through there and electrical wires and things like that through this conduit. And there was a whole bunch of space left over inside the conduit in the 3-incher. And what they had done was they took a rag on the outside and the inside, and they just taped it over the hole, so that if you're walking by it, you're not going to really notice anything. You're just going to think, well, that's been sealed off, Well, no, it hasn't. A small cat could have got through there if he knew to raise up that cloth flap and then go in. Well, the rat was smart enough to do that because they're clever and they're hungry. Hunger will drive you to look for stuff. So anyway, he was in there. He had been rooting in the garbage and probably got some stuff. And when I was chasing him, he ran out. Okay, no big deal. I got some, what did I have? I had a big contractor's tube of some kind of caulking stuff. And I used that whole tube and filled up the end of that conduit of that PVC. So now it's a wall, It just sealed off. There's no, it's waterproof. There's nothing could get in. A bug can't even get in there. And I thought, okay, job well done. And I checked it, and by nightfall it had set, and everything was fine. I don't know what it would take to get in there. Anyway, next day, girlfriend screaming, screaming in the laundry room. And I run in there, didn't have my snake stick this time. I didn't know what the hell I was going to do because I knew it was the rat, but Well, it could have also been a snake. I don't know. And I ran in there, and he's like, "Oh, it's you again, asshole." He goes back out through that same hole. I thought, what in the hell? I sealed that. I sealed that. And so I ran around outside. And yeah, I had sealed it. Well, he had just chewed through it. There had been a couple inches of this caulking stuff, this putty. And he was a determined little sucker, and he just chewed his way right through that and made a nice little hole. Oh, what the hell? Okay, so the next day, I researched this online, and somebody online said that, well, you can take mortar and you can fill that hole. But, we've seen rats get through that mortar. And I thought, no, that's not possible. They can't chew through mortar. It's concrete. No, that's not possible. But they said, anyway, what they did was, when they had that problem and the rats kept chewing through it, they would get steel wool and they would impregnate some big gobs of steel wool with the concrete. So it was a mushy thing, steel wool full of concrete. And they would take those and they would pack them into holes and then let it set up. And they said that no rats ever chewed through that stuff. And they hypothesized that something about the steel wool put them off. Maybe it cut their mouths or it hurt them, or they didn't like to chew through the steel wool. I don't know what their theory was, but I thought, well, I got to mortar this thing up anyway, so why not use the steel wool? So I did. And I thought, now, this is turning into Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, It's getting kind of, from somebody's point of view, it was comical, and not from mine, but maybe from girlfriend's point of view, maybe from the rat's point of view. I don't know. Anyway, so I mortared that sucker up really good with this concoction of shit. And it set up hard by nightfall, and I thought, okay, I dare you. If you can get through that, I'm going to open the fridge, and you're just in. You're just in. You can just live in the house from then on. Because if you can get through that, you're the man. You're the rat man. Next day, there he was, in the laundry room. Somehow he had dug out that steel wool and that mortar, the hard set mortar. And I thought, what in the hell is this? This is some kind of superhuman rat, human, some super powered freaking rat thing. I don't know what the hell is this crap. So I set to work, and I got really, really inventive, and I stuffed all kinds of crap in there. And so I ended up with this sealing that conduit all the way from one end to the other. So the wall was 8 inches, and then the conduit was a couple inches on either side of that. So you got 10, 12 inches. And I filled that whole thing full of various stuff that I thought would stop this rat. Okay. And next day, I saw that he had chewed some significant distance through this concoction of crap I'd put in there. And I said, okay, that's it. I win. You lose. Rat. That's it. I love rats, but you're not white. No, this has got to stop. So, before he was able to chew all the way through this whole stinking 12 inches of booby traps, I had some live traps that we had used for some damn thing, and I put a live trap out there. Man, it took me days. I think really about a week to catch that sucker with these live traps. And they're usually really efficient, but he was a clever, smart, genius level damn rat. And it was a week. I think it was even more than that. It might have been pushing 2 weeks before he would get the bait. I baited it with hot dogs, and I even baited it with hot dogs with that plastic skin on them so that he couldn't just, gum the hot dog and get it off. Man, I mean, he just breathed on that little trigger thing, and it would slam shut. I don't know how he did it. He got the bait. He got the bait. Jeez, I for a while I thought, well, the rat can't be doing this. It's got to be insects. It's got to be some insects coming in the nighttime or something, and they're just eating, teeny little bites, little fly-sized bites or something until the bait's all gone. And no, it wasn't that. It was the rat. He was just that smart. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to go, the next 2 or 3 years trying to outsmart this rat. I'm not going to do it. I got other things to do. And I didn't want him opening up another hole somewhere that the snakes would get through. So, made the decision. Got to die. And I thought about, why don't you just go drop him off? There wasn't any good place I could drop him off. It just wasn't. I figured he'd find his way back. I'd take him 5 miles. He'd find his way back, And I figured, no, you just got to die. That's all. Yeah, and then I can sleep at night. Then I'm sure you're not going to come back and cause any mischief. So one morning, I went out there, and the trap was finally sprung, and there he was. He was a healthy, hefty boy, and he's just looking at me, and I tried to decide how to do it, how to off him. Now, most people just use, a deadly trap. I don't know. I could have done that. I don't know. At that point, I wasn't 100% convinced he needed to die. At first, I just needed to stop him. So I figured, well, I'll get him in a live trap, and then I'll decide what to do, after that. So I got him, trapped him. Oh, he must have been pissed. I don't know. And so there he is. He's in the trap. He's looking at me, and I'm out there looking at him. I'm trying to think, okay, what the hell? How are you going to do this? Well, lots and lots of people use these drowning traps. They use a bucket. They got a ramp that goes up, and the rat walks up the ramp over the top of the bucket or the small drum, and he falls into the water and he drowns. And I thought, well, drowning kind of sucks. I mean, I was a commercial diver. I thought about drowning quite a bit. I sort of did once. I didn't really want to drown him, but I thought, well, it's a rat. And I don't have any more time for this foolishness. So I had a really big, let's see, what was it? It was probably a 40-gallon garbage can thing, plastic garbage can thing, big one, really big one. And I thought, okay, here we go. Here's my plan. I'm going to fill that thing, pretty full, 2/3 full of water. So I did. I got a hose, filled it 2/3 full of water, and it's sitting there. And he's in the cage, he's in the trap, and he's about 6-7 feet away, and he's just looking. He's over there in the corner of the cage, closest to where I'm working. He's just looking, beady little red eyes. He's just looking. He didn't go to the other end of the cage to try to get away from me or anything. He just stayed right there, just looking at what's going on there. I don't know what the hell. Just looking. He was really curious. So I get this thing 2/3 full, and I thought, okay, I'll just pick up the trap and I'll submerge it in the water. I'll walk away, come back in 5-10 minutes, half hour, I don't know, whatever. He's kind of a Cujo rat, so maybe it's going to take 30 minutes. Maybe he can hold his breath a really, really, really long time. I don't know. So I stood there because I didn't want to do it. If I had never had positive experiences with white rats, lab rats, I probably wouldn't have been hesitant at all about this. Hell, I might have whacked him with a bat, But I did have lots of really super positive experiences with the lab rats, and that just made me hesitate. Like, well, God, really? Really? And I went back and forth. Well, I can go drop him off. Well, he's just going to get into somebody else's house, and he's going to come back. I know he is. I had some wild dogs one time who kept hanging around my place, chasing my horses and stuff like that. And it really got to be a problem. And I didn't want to kill him. Kind of liked him, actually. And I trapped him in live traps. And I took them between 35 and 40 miles away in my truck, out in the desert, near another settlement. So they find food and water. And about midnight, I kicked him out. Said, there you go, new life, you know. Drove away. Next morning, there they were, chasing my horses. Between 35 and 40 miles in the desert. Okay, so, you know, that's influencing my decision not to go drop off the rat somewhere. All right, so I stood there and I looked at him for a while. He looked at me. He looked right straight into my eyes. Thought that was kind of peculiar. And I turned away and looked at the water and feeling bad. I was feeling bad. And wrestling with myself a little bit, trying to figure out, you know, are you sure you want to do this? Finally came to the conclusion, yeah, you don't have any choice. You just got to get this over with. You got to get on with your life. I said, okay. Decision made. I turned around 180 degrees. Going to walk the 6 feet to the trap, to the cage, pick it up and just do it. I resolved now. So I walked over to it, and he'd been sitting in the shade. He'd only been there an hour and a half. And he was perfectly comfortable. And when I walked right straight up to the cage, I thought it was odd that he didn't run to the far end of the little trap. And I looked down at him. Now his eyes were closed. And I thought, what the hell? And I jostled the trap. He didn't move. And then I jostled it really good. And he just rolled over. Feet sticking up, dead as a doornail. Dead as a doornail. And I got a real creepy feeling about that. And I'm trying to figure this out. What happened? What actually happened there? Cosmically, spiritually, what happened? You know, the woo-woo people are going to say, well, yeah, no, he sat there and he knew what was going to happen. He was reading your mind. He watched you build this drowning tank. And you already said he was really, you know, above average smart. And he watched you build this tank and fill it full of water. And he knew exactly what you were going to do. And he was reading your mind. He was tuned into you. And the moment you made that decision in your mind to off him, he knew it. And he just said, nah, not going there. No. There are better ways to check out. The woo-woo people are going to tell you he willed himself to die. Now, I tend to think, no, it was coincidence. It was just his time to die. He did not look like a particularly old rat. He's perfectly healthy. I mean, obviously. But what are the odds that he died naturally at exactly that instant? Because it was only a time span of, I don't know, 10 seconds. Probably 10 seconds between the time I looked at him and he's alive and he's looking around and his eyes are open. And 10 seconds later, he's dead as a doornail. 10 seconds. So that's a pretty narrow window of happenstance, you know. Could happen. I tend to think maybe it happened just his time, just random timing. But others will say no. He was an evolved rat. He was probably your spirit helper, dumbass. And you killed him. Well, I was going to kill him anyway. But, really it's better for him to go out in a manner of his choosing. Okay, so I know the comments on this are going to be horrendously hideous. Probably get some death threats, shit like that. Well, I'm not saying I don't deserve it. So go for it, Give me your worst. I'm not going to say I don't care. I have thought about that incident way, 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 way too many times over the decades, or the decade, I guess, since it happened. There's one positive product of this, and that is that it changed me and would change my behavior in the future. Night and day. So if the rat gave his life to save the lives of all kinds of other creatures that might cross my path in the future, then some might say, well, it was a worthy cause. And it was a sign of supreme honor on his part. Maybe. I can go either way. So in the comments, you want to bash me with a what's those things they used in medieval days? They look like a baseball bat, but they had big spikes on the end. I just saw some of those. I was in Romania in the Ukraine region last year, and I was in an old castle, and they had a bunch of those hanging around. What do they call those? Nasty things. Okay, go ahead. Come at me with one of those. I'll give you like 3 strikes before I even raise my hand, because I should have taken him out and let him go. I know that. I did a bad thing. I learned. I did. So, the comments are yours. You got some old farmer wants to comment. He's going to say, oh, you should have bashed him. You should have just hit him with a shotgun. Well, as you get older and you have more and more interactions with animals, you don't think that way so much anymore. And then you have a few experiences like this, and you don't think that way at all anymore. So, thank you, Mr. Rat. Now, if I would have just killed him, if I would have just drowned him, I would still think about that. I would think badly of myself. Maybe I would have learned something. Maybe that would have changed my behavior also, because I would have felt bad about doing it. But in this manner, which evoked a lot of mystery, it caused me to think about this event, I don't know, 50 or 100 times more than I would have if I would have just drowned him and, dusted off my hands and been done with that. So what happened here was pretty profound. Maybe I'll meet up with that rat in the afterlife. Maybe he'll chew my face off and I'll say, okay, I'm sorry, chew away. Okay? That's the story of, quote unquote, the rat. Now, this is going to go, since this was a Southeast Asian story, this is going to go on 10 Bears Travel Channel. And we got a bunch of other domains and websites, and I think we got 4 YouTube channels. We get more coming out. Basically, these are new YouTube channels. We've got hundreds and countless hundreds of videos and things and podcasts on our various websites. And we're now copying some and moving some to YouTube just to knock down our server costs, basically. So this is going to go on the 10 Bears Travel channel, and it will also go on our, since it's a weird and creepy story, it's going to go on another channel called the Eclectic, not electric, Eclectic channel, also known as every weird danged thing or something like that, or every danged weird thing. The Eclectic channel. Okay, whatever. You won't do bad enough if you find it. Anyway, it's going to go on 2 different channels. Little stories like this just make you think about big things. Little stories can make you think about big things, and this one has. Alrighty. From the jungles of Southeast Asia. And I see the monsoons are pelting against the windows out there. Thank you very much, and good evening and good night.